love psychology. I've been doing, I'm sure there's lots of people I've spoken to today. I've been doing psychology for 27 years. I learn something new about psychology every day. Okay? I learn how politicians lead psychologists. What are they for? So, this is where I live, which is really beautiful. It doesn't always look like this. At the moment, it's snowing. So, psychology is about brains. It's about people being friends with one another. It's about couches, people having difficulty talking to. It's about artificial intelligence. All right? It's about illusions. These two guys are the same size. It's a bit weird. These two little balls, they're all the same size as well. You've seen these visual illusion type things before, yeah? And one other thing we learn about psychology, a favourite question about psychology is, if I'm interested in science, why would I do psychology? Some people are not sure what they're interested in, so they're interested in lots of different things. But I am a scientist. Okay? Once every 6 or 7 years, the British government has us fill in a census form. And the census form says, what do you do for a living? Yep, what is your religion? Where do you know, all that kind of stuff. So they do some form of assessment. I don't know what the hell they use this stuff for. Sociologists use it or something or other. Right? And in the box it says what your religion is. Okay? Now I haven't really had, I have a lot of time for religion, I'm interested in it, but I haven't really had a religion since I was about 15 years old. Right? And I really want to write in that box, I want to write scientist or Jedi. Okay? But I'm not allowed to, because science, for me, is my belief system. Okay? It's through science that I understand the world, just as it's through religion that people understand the world, right? I feel comfort from science. If I want to know something, I'm more confused about something. Let's say one of my members of family is ill or something. Okay? I don't go to my priest or to my imam. I go to the internet. Right? And I read papers and I find out stuff. So for me, science is where I get my information from. So in that respect, science is my religion. But this is what science does. Chemistry, let's think chemistry, that's clearly science. Chemistry, you do experiments, you form hypotheses about things, you decide this is going to happen or not, and you do some statistics, right? That's chemistry, and physics, and biology, and guess what? Psychology. That is what psychology is, and it's through this process, through the method, that we progress our science. Now, there are some things in psychology that are more sciencey than others, and some areas that aren't, which is why it has lots of friends. Okay, now, this is the bit where you all need to join in. You have to watch as well, okay? But you all need to join in. You're going to see a basketball game that took place at Harvard University a long while ago. This has become a very famous basketball game. I want you all to watch the team wearing the white t-shirts. Okay? Some wearing black t-shirts, some wearing white t-shirts. The team wearing the white t-shirts are throwing the basketball to each other. When they throw the ball and catch it, you have to count 1. 1. When it bounces, you have to count, it counts to 2. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got it? Excellent, you can all count, that's good. You all have to do this, and you all have to do this out loud. And watch at the same time. Okay? You all have to do this out loud, and you all have to watch at the same time. So, everybody's joining in now. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, right. Okay, before you say anything, hands up please who did not see the gorilla. Hands up who did not see the gorilla. Put your hand up if you did not see the gorilla. Now look around you everybody. That's about 40% of the people in this room. We'll just watch that again. There's no counting required now. Okay, so I just want you to watch. Entering the stage around about now. Right? Now, I have been out in Prague on a Friday night. Trust me on this. you see some weird things. You see some people dressed up as stuff that really they're going to be very embarrassed by on Saturday morning. You don't see quite so many dressed up as gorillas. Why did you all miss the gorilla? Is it perfectly normal in your lives to see people wandering around with gorillas? No, it's not. I don't think it is. Now, this is an example of something in psychology called change blindness, or inattention blindness. Something happens that for some reason, your brain, even though taking this in, you have made a decision not to code it. God, that's interesting, isn't it? Now, I discovered this. I didn't discover this, obviously, I discovered this, I'd be a millionaire. I discovered this project a little while ago, and I went to a presentation at Edinburgh University where this was first presented on the international stage. And there were maybe 200 of the greatest cognitive scientists sat in a room watching this, and they're all very sceptical, these guys. They're all a bit kind of cool. They're all, well, we can impress us. Simons and Chabris got up and did this. They didn't do this, they did a slightly different demonstration. 60% of the people in the room did not see it. And these people were professional psychologists, and they were looking for it. Okay? It's amazing. How do we use this in the real world? Well, there's another whole series of stories there. It's a demonstration to show you that actually psychology is not as obvious as you think it is. You have a very complicated traffic system out there. I have been lost in it on a number of occasions in my life, right? It's got trams going in both directions, cars going in both directions, people rushing across the road to get to the metro system. Right? Now, if it's my job to make sure that you guys stay alive while walking around Prague, I need to know this stuff. Because if I put something in the middle of a roundabout or at a junction that I want you to see a sign and you miss it, you might kill someone. Now, I'm serious. Psychologists are involved in many different areas of life. One area of life is an area of research that I'm involved in, which is called transport psychology. We're very interested in how people engage with their life in cities. So, an example of one thing that perhaps psychologists fall that you may not have considered. Biological psychology, another area of psychology, also known these days as neuroscience. Can I just say, I've been studying biological psychology for 26 years. Only 3 or 4 years ago did it get reinvented as neuroscience. Right? I am a neuroscientist. I didn't even know. Neuroscience. This is called a scanner. If you've got something wrong with you, they'll shove you in the scanner and they'll see which bit of your brain lights up. Right? Typically, this person's brain is lighting up at the back here. This is where your visual cortex is, V1 and V2. If you fall off your bicycle and bang your head on the floor, or you slip on a bit of ice, yeah, and you can hear a ringing, and you go, bing, right, and you can see stars. That's because you bumped the back of your head where your visual cortex lives. Okay? Now, here is a young lady. She is being scanned. She is watching something through this kind of visual system that she's been given to look at, and her occipital cortex, her visual cortex, is lighting. What this proves is that she is using her eyes. That is all it proves. What can I tell from looking at this about what images she's looking at? Nothing. Now, you can study neuroscience if you want to, but the theory of psychology is so much bigger than just a scanner. It is more than this. Don't make this mistake. My grandmother pretty much brought me up. Okay? Which is why I'm a stranger to town, because my grandmother's fault. My grandmother pretty much brought me up. I spent my time walking on the beaches when I was little with my grandma. She was very tall, I was very small. Okay? The things that bring your memories to you are your experiences of your life. My grandmother wore Chanel No. 5. She always did. She was quite posh. She wore Chanel No. 5. Right? Chanel No. 5 is a very familiar smell to lots of you, particularly to me. It's a very familiar smell. When I was 16, I went out with a girl called Melissa to the cinema. Do you know what perfume she wore? Chanel No. 5. Do you know how many dates I went on with her? 1. Because all I could think about was my grandma. This is not what you want to experience when you're sitting at the cinema for the first time. We sat in the back row. Awful. Couldn't do it. Right? So, first thing I used to ask a girl then after that, before I married my delightful wife, who doesn't wear, no, she wears matte music. Like, was, what perfume do you wear? Do you know I'm quite? Okay? But that's memory, and I mean it seriously. There are certain things you can bring to mind, which is what psychology is. The smell of fresh cut grass, the smell of the first day of snow, the smell of the traffic. God, you're going to miss it when you leave Prague. I know that's weird, because you don't hate the traffic, pollution. It feels like home to you. The smell of the metro system. People in London miss the metro system. They miss the tube in London, and it stinks. Right? I hate it, but people in London feel at home there. Okay? These are important things about psychology that we must consider carefully. So, psychology means different things to different people. It could be a theoretical approach, and we teach a theoretical approach at Aberystwyth and other universities, but we also teach a very applied approach. I am of the mind that you don't come to university for fun anymore, well, you do, but you come to university because you want to get a job at the end of it, yes? It's an expensive process these days. So I have to teach you, during the degrees that you're there with us, what you can use these skills for. And that's what we spend our time doing at university these days. Now, this isn't the task I want you to do, because we haven't got time. It's a task I want you to think about. Any role, any job, find one that doesn't have some psychology involved in it. And you won't. People often say, oh, you know, someone who collects the rubbish in the morning. There's no psychology involved in that. God, yes, there is. Certainly those of you who have ever bought a house, or those of you who rent your own apartment, will know that the people that take care of your streets are very important people to you. Security guard. That is all about psychology. Technicians. All about psychology. Treating people correctly at their desks. Doctors. All about psychology. You will know, if you've met a doctor that doesn't treat you properly, how much you hate them. Yes? People tell you that if you've got a good doctor, don't move. If you've got good neighbours, don't move. If you rent an apartment and your neighbours are a nightmare, you might as well have stayed in the tiny little apartment in Prague 8 that you had. Very unlikely that you will find a job that doesn't have some psychology in it, which is why I use phrases like politicians. Politics is basically applied psychology. It's about behaviour change, it's about encouraging people to do things that you want them to. Like vote for you. Typically, in my experience with politicians, is they just tell lies, but they do. So, applied psychology can mean different things. It can mean this, health psychology, changing the way that we behave, encouraging people to take more healthy behaviour. It could mean traffic psychology, or in this case it could mean something like criminology, why people do the crimes that they do, why do people decide that they know the rules of our society and then they decide to break them. Is it always about money? Not always. Sometimes it's about the thrill. Yes? I have never in my life broken the law. Right? But all of the laws I've broken, I have decided to do it. Usually driving too fast. That's my favourite law breaking. Yes? I used to have a car that was just impossible to drive slowly. Oh, didn't I get into trouble? Right? But those are laws that you choose to break or not. Sometimes not telling your parents where you're going. Is breaking society's laws. Yes? Sometimes dangerously for you. But that is breaking society's laws. You decide which components are to break. And it's part of growing up and part of morality. And criminology is a component of that, and that's the area that we study in psychology. I've already talked to you about applied psychology. This is a traffic junction in Amsterdam. It's pretty hectic. When you take a still photograph like this, when you take a time-lapse photograph like this, you can actually see the change in what's going on in the traffic at any particular time. How many road signs is too many road signs? Good question. Yes, if you want to instruct people about how to behave themselves on the road, how do you go about doing that? And when do you stop doing that? When do you allow people to take their own control back? In the United Kingdom, also in parts of Amsterdam, there have been a series of experiments done on something called shared space. I'll just give you an example of this. Out there is a busy road. What would happen if we took away all of the road markings, all of the traffic lights, yeah, and we just said, don't go any faster than 50 kilometres an hour? What will happen? Perfect answer is, it would be crazy out there and everyone would die. Yes? Correct answer is, people take more care. Very surprising when you see it. Shared space, when you allow people to share the space, when the pavements become the roads smoothly, people take more care about things. When it is more dangerous, people step away from danger. Right? It's a hell of a risk to take in society, but it's some really interesting psychology going on. And I think that's another thing that I'm particularly interested in at the moment. For most people, this is applied psychology pills. And it's something which upsets me, because 9 times out of 10 there's another solution. If you go to the doctor, the easiest thing for the doctor to do to get you the hell out of their surgery is to say, have some antidepressants, goodbye. And actually what you need is the doctor to say, have some antidepressants and make an appointment with that counsellor over there. We'll see you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Please do come back. So talking therapy is a very important thing, it's something which I believe passionately in. But I also think there is a place for antidepressants and antipsychotics. So consider that as part of our psychology as well. So is psychology all boring lectures and pointless lessons? No, I genuinely don't think it is. Studying supernatural is rather interesting. And it's an applied area of psychology called anomalistic psychology, and it goes on. So Ghostbusters, and that, do we know what that is? Just out of interest, since we're in Czechoslovakia? That's called a crop circle. Who makes crop circles? This is probably being filmed, so we'll be a bit careful about this. Who makes crop circles? Aliens? Drunk second-year psychologists. Just so you know. Interesting, isn't it? They'd rather believe it was an alien than drunk second-year psychologists, which I found most entertaining. Now, recent history, this was cool. Recent history, well, I say recent history because it's not really terribly recent, is it? This is something called table tipping. Now, this used to pass for entertainment in London all those years ago. There was nothing going on, obviously, nothing on the telly. And what used to happen was people would pay to go and see these people. This is a tiny little woman, look. And she's invoked the spirit, and the table is flying around the room. It's called table tipping. It's very exciting. Fraud. What's happening here is those arms that she's got there are false. She's got her own arms in them. They're attached to the table, and she's simply lifting a very light table around the room. Okay? But people pay a fortune to see this kind of thing. Right? But why did they pay? Because they wanted to believe. They wanted to believe in something other than the life that they're currently living. There's a good deal of psychology in that. And some of the first people to debunk these myths came at around about that time, because people wanted to understand life after death. You get 10 points for Gryffindor if you know who that is. If you know your Harry Potter. That's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes stories, yes? Now, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, when he finished writing the Sherlock Holmes stories, became enormously interested in evidence of the occult and evidence of anomalistic psychology as we now know it. And he spent a long time spending his fortune trying to find evidence of this. So there's a long, long history of that kind of psychology that goes on. So that's something that you're interested in. That's something which goes on. It also has a long history, an ancient history. We say now that modern psychology began in Leipzig, in Wilhelm Wundt's laboratory at the turn of the last century. But really, if you think about it, it's been going on for a lot longer. This is a papyrus, so people imbuing animals with human-like qualities, snakes and things like that, right? Why do we believe that snakes can do the things that the ancient Egyptians were thinking they can do? The Mayan culture, this understanding of otherworldliness, something which is different, something which we haven't seen before, that they understand as being a bit strange. Again, all about psychology and a belief system that they're interested in. That's Stonehenge, which is in the south of, I'm getting older and older. That's Stonehenge, which is in the south of England. Yes, which is basically a little pile of rocks in the middle of a field. It's quite a big pile of rocks in the middle of a field, it has to be said. Right? But it is a pile of rocks in the middle of the field, where people used to go and hang out there. They still go and hang out there twice a year. So, right? So Stonehenge, we believe, they want to believe in something different, right? Something which is running their lives. Do we have control over our lives, or do other people run it for us? Do we have free will? Another really interesting psychology question. Now, the implications for this are enormous, and psychology has something to say about it. The implications for organised religion, for instance. I've already talked about being a Jedi. And there are lots of organised religions. Clearly I'm doing this so I don't offend everybody as equally as I possibly can. That's pretty much it. But there are lots of different religions. Okay? Basically they're all the same. But they've got like little different labels in different places. And the way that they operate their religions is slightly different. But basically it's a belief system of some sort. Okay? Now, why do people base their decisions on a blind faith, on a religion? When I became particularly interested in religion, I was confirmed in the Christian faith, and the guy that confirmed me was a guy called Canon Dowse, a huge Welshman, I really rather liked him, and I said, Canon Dowse, what if I question my faith? Because I do sometimes. And he said, good. Well, that's a very strange thing for a priest to say. And he said, good. He said, I question my faith once a week. He said, pretty much on Saturday afternoon when Wales are playing rugby, that's when I question my faith. And I thought, I question faith about something. But he said, you question your faith, and I question my science all the time. If I read something I don't believe in, I read something else to back up my belief system, and then I come to my own conclusion. So here's what I'm saying to you, youth of today. Have your own opinions, but back them up with thought and care. By all means, listen to religion. I'm a big fan, as I've already said. But listen to your science as well. So the implications are huge. This is in Edinburgh. It's closed now. But this was a research establishment called the Kessler Unit, and it was set up specifically to look at why people believe in ghosts and why people believe in the supernatural, and to explain these things. They have never found evidence of it. They spent their time trying to debunk myths about these things. This is a photograph taken by a chap called Freeze Green, ancient Photoshop essentially. It's called a double negative. It's how you used to be able to do it in the old days when you had cameras. You used to be able to overlay one image with another. And he took there an image of a bloke being quite scared and a ghost. He made a fortune with that photograph because it was the first real photograph of a ghost. Okay, so people have been wanting to see this stuff for years. But in psychology, there are people that still do this. That guy there is a guy called James Randi, and he has, it really is, isn't it? And he has a prize of $1 million for anyone who can prove existence of the supernatural. And he has not yet found it. No one has ever claimed it. And through debunking it, we use the methods that we learn in psychology to carefully work out whether what people are seeing is true or real or just their belief system. So psychology has stuff to do. Now, I'm hoping this is going to work. You get 20 points to Gryffindor if you know who that is. That is. Well, so I'm a big fan of Zeppelin.
Is that Saxon?
No, it's Led Zeppelin. But it's okay. It's pretty much the same thing. But yes, can I just say, I live in West Wales now, I live in Aberystwyth. And the maestro, Jimmy Page, we are not worthy, lives 20 miles up my road. And I see him in the pub occasionally. Ready for this? Now, all listen to this tune, which you may already know. Some of us in this room were growing up a little while ago. I just think these because frankly I can't look at these guys. Right. weird stuff used to go on, because you used to buy music on something called vinyl, right, which was a plastic thing with grooves in it, old-fashioned, yeah? Right? And what you used to be able to do was get the needle and put it on the vinyl and play the music backwards. You did, it used to pass for entertainment. So you could put the needle on and you could go and play the music backwards. Now, everybody in the front row and sitting on the floor, please close your eyes. Don't cheat. Everyone else, watch and read. That's important. The guys who had their eyes closed, what did you hear? Swedish, yes? Swedish is only English backwards, I thought. You did, didn't you? You heard Swedish, that kind of thing. Basically Swedish. The rest of, there aren't any Swedish people in the room with us. The rest of you, you heard that, didn't you? More or less. Pretty much. If you listen carefully, that's what you heard. Let's just play it again. If you can just read and listen. Very important. Now, that's not really there. Jimmy Page is not playing his magnificent twin-throated guitar backwards. Right? Robert Plant is not singing backwards. What I did was I took Zeppelin and I took Stairway, which is a very strange song about something, and I reversed it. Okay? And then I told you what you were supposed to hear, and that's why you heard it. If you hear nonsense in the world, and you are provided with a pattern upon which to make sense of that nonsense, you will make sense of it. Human beings are desperate to make sense of crazy stuff. Where crazy stuff happens, you will try and make sense of it, because that's what you are. You are basically pattern-matching creatures. Yes? You can't cope with madness. When it all gets too much for you, your brain implodes. So you try and simplify things. This got Zeppelin into a lot of trouble. They used to get Black Sabbath into a lot of trouble as well, for those of you familiar with Ozzy Osbourne. Used to get into a lot of trouble for this kind of thing, because people used to find messages by playing the vinyl backwards. It's Satan. It's Satan. They would find messages in records. It's called backmasking, and it's called top-down processing. Top-down processing in psychology is something that we lead our lives by. Your experience, in this case the experience I'm giving you, alters your current experience. Your background, your knowledge, all of the years you've been on the earth influences what you are seeing and hearing right now. And there are a number of different examples. Queen, that's the Queen. Not that Queen though, that Queen. Familiar with the Queen. Do not go home and tell parents. Do not go home and tell parents that I'm instructing you to worship the devil, for God's sake, because I'll never get out of it. Check it back. Got them into trouble. Now, I've got to be a bit careful about Lady Gaga, because I actually think she is an alien. So, it's not but you will guess at what they are, even though you haven't heard them properly, you'll kind of fill them in. Because that's what humans do with speech perception. If you don't really hear something, because I turn around my mouth a little bit, or I just talking for a little while, you will fill in the gaps to make sense. Because you have to. Because if you don't, the world will sound appalling. Not only that, let's be quiet for a second and listen to the world. Busy, isn't it? But you're not listening to that. You're able to engage with me. Now here's something which only people who wear glasses, I do wear quite heavy contact lenses, so I can talk about this for example. Those of us that wear glasses, I'm kind of hoping that someone here has got quite bad eyesight. Is anyone here going to put their hand up and say, actually my eyesight's not very good? Yeah, those of you that wear glasses, your eyesight's not great. But hopefully there's one of you. Have you ever heard anyone use the phrase, and ask your elderly grandparents this, have you ever heard anyone say, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, I'm not wearing my glasses? Have you ever heard anyone say that? Ask them. Okay? Ask them. And the reason for this is, all of you, even though you can hear, you pay attention to people's lips when they speak. All of you lip read. If you're in the pub, or you go to a bar, or not that you guys have ever been to a bar, right? You would never do such things, we're all too young. Right? Those of you who've ever been to a bar will know that it's quite a noisy place to be. And sometimes the only way you can listen to people is by watching their lips really carefully. And it adds volume. So you all lip read. And you find this with people who wear glasses, and particularly heavy glasses, well sometimes they say, well, hang on a minute, I haven't got my glasses on. Now put their glasses on and then they can hear you properly. It's a very strange thing for you to experience. So, top-down processing, pattern, making sense of patterns in the world, this is the kind of thing that computer scientists do all the time. And yes, computer scientists model what's going on in computers against what humans are able to do. So yes, psychologists are also engaged in computer science. What's that? A dog. Can anyone not see a dog? Okay? I'm just gonna alter your brains for the rest of your lives. There it is. Can you all see it now? Okay, I'm going to take the red line away. No, I'm not. That way. Are you now able to see the dog in this picture? Everyone? So there's the dog, yes? And now it's gone. So the next time you open a textbook, and this image is there, which it will be, a spotty dog on a spotty background is a favourite one, you will all be able to see the dog in it immediately. Because once in your life, you came to a talk in Prague where someone showed you how that worked. Now, it brings me up in goosebumps that I've just altered your brains. No, honestly. Okay? Altering people's understanding of the world is what teaching is. Fundamentally changing wiring in people's heads so that you are now able to go away and explain some of these demonstrations that I've given you to other people is incredible. That's what being a human is. That's what being a psychologist is. So that's where psychology meets the real world. So, okay. Clearly that isn't the man in the moon. Okay? I don't know if it works in Prague and Czechoslovakia. Do you ever use that phrase? You say, can you see a man in the moon when you look at the moon? Sort of a... No? Okay, in the UK, right, very often people will say, oh, there's a man in the moon. Right, which means, if you look at it, kind of a bit like that, then some of the arrows, some of the shadows on the moon look a little bit like a face. And we're not all schizophrenic, right? Some of the shadows look a little bit like a face. If you cannot see that, okay, because you haven't tried hard enough, find someone who can, and hopefully someone you can trust, because you've got to go out in the dark with them. Find someone who can, and they will explain to you the shapes in the moon. And then for the rest of your life, when there's a full moon, you will be able to see the man in the moon. French people see rabbits in the moon, by the way. Do that band on the moon, right? So they see a rabbit away at the street. So what's that? Heart. It's not a cloud, but it looks like a heart, and everyone will see the pattern of a heart. That's like a rabbit.
And if I see a duck?
You can have it, yeah, you can see a duck, yeah.
If I try it?
Yeah, you can get rabbit or duck, it's a favourite thing in psychology, that one. That's my photograph. Yeah, it does look a bit like a duck, you're right. That's a pussycat. Yeah, the cloud, yeah, that's a pussycat, yeah. I took that photograph. Now, here's another example. One area of psychology, which I started doing all those years ago, I still do a little bit of now, is an area called psychophysics. Psychophysics is the study of how the conceptual world gets in touch with the psychological world. So I'm interested in what arises in your ears and your eyes and in your sense organs. So here's an example. And it might not work with this speaker, but we'll give it a go. So this looks like physics, doesn't it? Just for those who study physics. This is a 400 hertz tone. That's a big level. That's a 400 hertz tone. Okay, single tone. This is a 600 hertz tone. Dogs outside, rushing around. This is a 1 kilohertz tone or a 1000 hertz tone. What that means is 1000 cycles per second. Got it? And this is what they sound like all together. Kind of like a musical fart. Now, a little while ago in the United States at Bell TNT Laboratories, Robert Remez, who's a very strange man, please don't lie like that. Sorry, Mr. Remez, if we're recording this. Who is indeed a very strange man. Robert Remez identified something called Remez waves. Now, this is called a spectrogram. Can you use your imagination here for a second? Can you imagine there are in fact sort of 3 definable lines here? One at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. Sort of, they change, but 3 lines. My voice, my classically trained voice, has 23,000 frequencies being produced at any one time. Yeah? Or as angels do. Your auditory systems are able to hear 16,000, 17,000 of them. So there are lots of additional ones there that you can't even hear, which is a strange thing for evolution. And as you get older, you can hear less and less. What I've done is I've taken some speech and I've removed all of the frequencies in the speech except 3. And this is what it sounds like.
My dog Bingo ran around the wall.
Now, is anyone able to hear speech in that? Now, so here is the pattern. This is what it should sound like.
My dog Bingo ran around the wall.
My dog Bingo ran around the wall. Now listen to it again.
My dog Bingo ran around the wall.
Now, this is another example from psychology which makes people go, and what's happened there is, yes, it's a pattern, it's nonsense. You can't make it out until I tell you what it is you're supposed to listen to, and then you can make it out. This is the kind of thing that mobile phone manufacturers are very interested in. So they can take out information that you're speaking into your phone before it gets squirted across the road to your friend. Yes, they don't have to pass quite so much bandwidth, they can charge you more money and make more profit. A lot of psychology went on with this kind of thing a little while ago, particularly by Nokia did a lot of work on this kind of thing. Right? So, Remez waves or speech patterns like this tell us that we are great at perceiving the human voice. Once we've turned on part of your head that says, now I will listen for a human voice, we do. It's an amazing thing in psychology. But psychology exists in the real world. This is an illusion. These are parallel lines. Yeah, these lines are parallel, they're not closing together, they're parallel lines. Do you agree? They don't look like it over there. It looks like an illusion. This is called the cafe wall illusion. Do you know why it's called the cafe wall illusion? Because the chap that first identified it walked past a cafe every day on his way to work, a guy called Richard Gregory, and saw that wall. Looked like a badly tiled wall. And there it is. Psychology in real life. Once you see that, parallel lines, you think, hang on a minute, that's interesting. And what Gregory did was he took it to his laboratory, redesigned it, and he ran experiments with it with people. And that's what psychology is all about for me, it's real stuff. I've got probably 1 or 2 more things, just one more thing to show you in particular, then I'm going to run out of time. This is my favourite illusion. This is called the checkerboard illusion. It's absolutely incredible, and you are not going to believe me. I'll just go with it. Can you see the squares marked A and B? Yes. One is a kind of a white square and one is a dark grey square, isn't it? No, they are exactly the same shade of grey. And listen, I tried photoshopping this on the train, so do me a favour, right? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And the reason this happens is because the cylinder, which is the green thing, yes, you know from in your life that if something casts a shadow over something, it momentarily makes that thing a little bit darker. Yes, so if the light was behind me here, I would be casting a shadow over you, you would get a little bit darker. Yes, but not permanently, because I would step away from the light and you would light yourself again like magic. Okay? Shadows do change the darkness of things, but not permanently. So what our psychology does is when a shadow happens, we go, oh, there's a shadow. I'll just light it up, even though the shadow is there. And what you've done here is you've been fooled. It's a two-dimensional image. The shadow being cast over square B makes square B a little bit darker, but we know that, so you've lightened it a little bit. So it seems lighter than square A. Now, is it just human beings that get this kind of illusion? No, because you can train pigeons to tap to the darker squares. And you can test illusions with animals and pigeons and everything else. So, there's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of things in psychology that you may or may not know that is psychology. In the United Kingdom, psychology is often studied in schools, so they've got a better idea about what they think it is before they come up. Here, maybe not so much in school. So it is now my mission to tell people all over Czechoslovakia about what my subject actually is. You will find an area within psychology that you get on with. If you are wondering what the hell to do at university, I don't know what I want to do for a living, psychology is not a bad bet, because the skills that you learn on the psychology degree are hugely useful in many different areas. It's one of the highest levels of employability of any of the degrees in the United Kingdom. Okay? Well done. Thank you very much.